अगर आप खबरें पढ़ते हैं तो बीजिंग में कुछ 10 दिन पहले बीजिंग में 500 मिलीमीटर बारिश 4 दिन में गिरी थी and Beijing was flooded. Hundreds of people died. There's a fire. There was a forest fire in Hawaii, the island of Maui. Dozens of people died. Last month there was rain in Balochistan. Over 50 people died. Chitral mein flooding hui thi. There was a lot of property damage. I'm sure you saw the forest fires in Greece and in Sicily. The island of Rhodes had to be evacuated. You saw tourists like refugees leaving their hotels on foot. और पिछले साल जो पाकिस्तान में बारिश हुई थी in Balochistan in Sindh, between 400 to 800% over average rainfall fell and created a lake that was over 100 kilometers wide and could be seen from space, affecting over 30 million Pakistanis and unhousing at least 10 million of them. So we are, as the UN Secretary General says, this year we are now in the age of global boiling, not global warming, but global boiling. Global warming is caused by greenhouse gases. Greenhouse gases, जब भी हम कोई चीज़ ज़मीन से निकाल के उसको जलाएं, it creates a greenhouse gas, whether it's coal, whether it's wood, whether it's petrol, whether it's diesel. जब ज़मीन से निकाल के उसको energy या transport के लिए इस्तेमाल करते हैं, you create a greenhouse gas which heats the atmosphere. It traps the sun's heat in the atmosphere and creates global warming. And we are on Earth, compared to pre-industrial levels, यानी कि the last 200 years, only 1.1 to 1.2 degrees centigrade on average warmer than pre-industrial levels. And at 1.1, 1.2, we are seeing unprecedented levels of destruction around the world. The Earth's ecosystem has been in balance since the last ice age several 100,000 years ago, and it has allowed agriculture to flourish on Earth to support human civilization. What these increasing temperatures are doing is making it now next to impossible for that level of agriculture to support the human civilization that we have become accustomed to. And right now, scientists are telling us that there are sufficient greenhouse gases in the atmosphere today, even if we stopped all activity today, to lock in a global warming of approximately 1.5 degrees by 2030, which is 7 years away. And unless, according to the Secretary General, unprecedented changes in global economics and society are not made, we might see as much as 2 degrees of global warming by the middle of this century. There is no safe amount of global warming, I must inform you, and unfortunately, it's the global majority, the global south, that is more at risk from these unprecedented changes that we're beginning to see. Now, I've spoken about greenhouse gases causing global warming, and I've spoken about the prediction of scientists going into the future. This is no longer the planet that we grew up in, and our children are going to face an unstable, chaotic world where resources will be scrambled for. What we need to understand now, and that's why I'm so lucky to be able to speak to you, is we need to understand the drivers of climate change and dismantle them. We have come this far because of certain things. And for example, the dominant form of economics in the world, you call it neoliberal economics, call it capitalism. In my understanding, it allows for the unaccountable consumption of natural resources and abuse of human labor. You see, for example, there are less than 100 companies still existing on Earth today that are responsible for 2/3 of historical greenhouse gas emissions. That so few people have made so much money knowing full well what their actions would entail requires us to reassess this system of economics and introduce accountability into it. We need to change how economics is taught, how business is taught in the world, not just in Pakistan. Consumerism drives global warming, our habits. For example, I drove here in a car, so I've burnt fossil fuels. But my footprint is 10 times higher than someone who lives in Bhakkar. वहाँ तो 18 घंटे load shedding होती है. There's hardly any consumption. And if you go up, people who drive SUVs, the billionaire class who travel in private jets, emit hundreds times more carbon than I do. So it's these habits, for instance, that we need to dismantle and change as well. When I was growing up in Lahore, there was no coffee. Instant coffee bhi nahi milti thi. But now there's coffee shops everywhere. Because people want to wake up in the morning. भाईजान अगर आपने सुबह उठना है तो रात को जल्दी सोएं. These consume, because you're getting the coffee bean from South America, it's being flown 10,000 miles on an airplane, creating chemtrails and leaving greenhouse gases on higher altitudes. What for? These attitudes need to change. They must be dismantled. We literally need a new morality going forward. And most importantly in this morality, and I think I'll end here, is that as the very things that underpin our civilization become weak and are weakening today, we as human beings need to be able to identify and sympathize and empathize with the humanity of others. दूसरों का दर्द जो है, we must know how to feel it and to respond to it. We must not be people who write individuals off, and forget about them. Last year when 30 million Pakistanis were affected by the floods, I would watch television and YouTube, और हमारी खबर जो है वो तोशा खाना, खत्म नबूवत, उससे आगे तो चलती नहीं है. So departments of philosophy need to be retooled. English literature needs to be retaught. Businesses, the humanities, the sciences need to be retooled so that we are better equipped going into a very dangerous world in the future. मेरे करीब जो हमारे माहौलियाती कानून है वो इंडस्ट्रियल पोल्यूशन कंट्रोल को टैकल करने के लिए बनाए गए थे. दे डोंट एक्चुअली लुक एट एग्रीकल्चर पोल्यूशन. मैटर ऑफ फैक्ट इन द एनवायरमेंट प्रोटेक्शन एक्ट पंजाब का जो है, पेस्टिसाइड्स आर एक्सक्लूडेड फ्रॉम द डेफिनेशन ऑफ हैजर्डस सब्सटेंसेस. सो वी आर रियली फोकसिंग ऑन इंडस्ट्रियल पोल्यूशन कंट्रोल. अब जो शख्स केमिकल बाहर फेंकता है and affects the lives and properties of his neighbors should not be allowed to complain that he won't make enough profit if he installs a waste treatment plant, because there is an externality that is not being factored, and the externality is the cost to the environment and to society. And I have met industrialists who bemoan the high cost of waste treatment and its O&M costs, but फिर वो अपनी मर्सिडीज गाड़ी में बैठ के जाते हैं. तो तार साहब कह रहे थे ना कि वो पैसे कहाँ से आएंगे, वो उनको क्या मर्सिडीज बेचे और लगा लें ये. देखिए, in order for the Environment Protection Act to properly be implemented, the Environment Protection Agency needs to be properly equipped. आपने उनको कानून के तहत कोई 70-80 जिम्मेदारियां दे दी हैं, मगर उनका फील्ड फॉर्मेशन बजट वो 1990s का ही पड़ा हुआ है. It does not, they don't have the equipment to be able to carry out the testing necessary to conduct an appropriate prosecution against polluters. You can't just accuse someone of waste, discharging wastewater. You've got to test it. Testing can cost up to ₹1,00,000 for a single test. So you need to have laboratories, you need to have the chemicals, you need to have the money and the manpower to be able to do this. Lahore mein, for example, there are well over 10,000 industrial units. And yahan environmental inspectors kitne hain? So six environmental inspectors. So you need to upgrade this. Now at the same time, and here's the disconnect, at the same time we have plenty of money for single, what are they called? Signal-free interchanges and overpasses and underpasses. We see a disproportionate amount of money being given as subsidies to the construction sector, to the developers, and even to farmers, but not to the communities and to the people that are being affected by climate change and the environment, and certainly not to upgrade equipment as well. So I don't think necessarily we need out-of-the-box thinking. We just need more better governance and budget allocation to environment to be able to see far more results. It's a low-hanging fruit, as it were. Secondly, we also need a little bit more awareness within government to be able to do things properly. For example, we have an electric vehicle policy that the federal government passed about 2 years ago. It seeks to reduce Pakistan's dollars going out to buy oil, and also seeks to replace the combustion engines with electric vehicles to improve air pollution. Magar yahan no one's told the provincial entities that this is the case. Yahan Punjab mein, when you buy a car, you have to get it registered with the Excise and Taxation Department. No one's told the Excise and Taxation Department about the EV policy. They take car registration as a revenue exercise and don't distinguish between combustion engines and electric vehicles. So they can't, promote EV registration. So no one's actually told them. Secondly, our motor vehicle ordinance, mashallah, from 1960 requires when you register an automobile to state its engine capacity and engine size. वो form के अंदर लिखा हुआ है. It comes with the law itself. But EVs don't have those engine sizes. You can't register an electric vehicle because our law is from 1960 and it hasn't been amended or updated to keep up with the times. So we do make these policy initiatives at the federal level. We have a national climate change policy. We just adopted the national adaptation plan. We have the nationally determined contributions under the Paris Accord, where we've committed to 40% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions till 2030. But no one's filtered that down to the provinces and told them that you're the people actually responsible for doing this. Because most climate governance comes in areas of irrigation, in agriculture, in transport, in industries, all of which have provincial departments. So no one in the federation has told the provincial departments that this is a responsibility that they have to undertake, and these are the programs and initiatives that they need to take. So better governance and more budget allocation to environment enforcement, not necessarily out of the box thinking. We need to start reforming the way, as I said earlier, working towards a new morality, and that will include a new curriculum that speaks to the finest qualities of our humanity. That allows us, because the numbers are staggering. They are staggering. Right now, the WHO says that 10 million people lose their life every year just because of air pollution around the world. But this figure is not equally distributed. Most of these deaths take place in Asian and African cities, mostly on account of transport and energy emissions. Those 10 million people are us. We have to prepare ourselves and our future generation for a life which will include these challenges. We have to raise them in the belief that raise them with empathy, allow them not to feel what's called climate depression, what people are called collapse aware, and they realize there's nothing to be done. We can't give up either. We must always strive to protect humanity and other human beings, and from that onwards, other living things and wildlife. We are responsible stewards of this and of our planet. And I think these messages need to filter down through the education system so that we can be better prepared in the future. आप खुश होंगी कि पंजाब में, इस्लामाबाद कैपिटल टेरिटरी में और गिलगित बल्तिस्तान में सिंगल यूज़ प्लास्टिक के रेगुलेशंस इंट्रोड्यूस हो चुके हैं, जहां कई किस्म के सिंगल यूज़ प्लास्टिक सब बैन हो गए हैं, और जो लोग सिंगल यूज़ प्लास्टिक्स को बनाना चाहते हैं, बिकॉज प्लास्टिक्स आर पार्ट ऑफ आवर कल्चर. ठीक है, मेरे सामने प्लास्टिक पड़ा हुआ है, मेरे फ़ोन में प्लास्टिक है, मेरी गाड़ी में प्लास्टिक, मेरे घर में प्लास्टिक है. इट्स नाउ पार्ट ऑफ आवर कल्चर. तो उस कल्चर से हटने के लिए वो तो बड़ा सवाल है. आई डोंट नो अबाउट दैट, बट यू विल बी हैप्पी टू नो दैट देयर इज़ प्लास्टिक रेगुलेशंस. बियॉन्ड दिस प्लास्टिक रेगुलेशन से बात मैं करना चाहूँगा कि ये पेट बॉटल वाले जो है ना, they are the ones who manufacture and make this plastic bottle, और जिम्मेदारी कंज्यूमर पे फिर आ जाती है कि you have to dispose of it. अब देखें, अगर 70 साल से हमने ये नहीं किया तो कल से हम शुरू नहीं करेंगे. We should have what's called extended producer liability, जाके ये पेप्सी कोलास और ये नेस्ले वाले जो हैं, they are made responsible for recycling, reusing these plastic bottles. So on the corporate social responsibility side, that's very necessary. And ये देखें, ये जुडिशरी का काम नहीं है. जुडिशरी का काम प्लास्टिक बैग या पानी साफ करना नहीं है. एंड वी हैव टू स्टॉप टेकिंग केसेस टू कोर्ट, बिकॉज ताहिर साहब आपको बताएंगे, ये जो जज्बाती जजेस हो जाते हैं ना, इस वक्त पंजाब का सारा माहौलियाती काम जो है वो लाहौर हाई कोर्ट से हो रहा है. दे टेक चार्ज एंड द डिपार्टमेंट एक्चुअली विदर्स अवे एंड यू लूज अ लॉट ऑफ द कैपेसिटी दैट शुड बी डेवलप्ड. अर्बन प्लानिंग के कानून की ज़रूरत है. यहाँ से मैं लेक सिटी जा सकता हूँ with only 3 traffic lights, because developers have usurped municipal functions and have provided benefits for the minority elite that can buy 4 crore houses. ठीक है जी, our municipal services should be democratically allocated to people. पानी, बिजली, clean air should be available to everyone, not just the rich elite. और इसके लिए कानून की ज़रूरत है. And it's the rich elite that's doing this. Model Town was the first planned development in Lahore. वो कोट लखपत रिजर्व फॉरेस्ट में बनाया गया था. जो मलिक साहब आज कर रहे हैं ना किरतर नेशनल पार्क के साथ, वो हमने लाहौर में 100 साल पहले शुरू किया था. So the elites need to be taught as well. जनाब ने वो रोड बम्प्स के बारे में बात की थी. I completely agree with you, but let's not forget the fact that the petrol in Pakistan is the dirtiest in the world. हमारी refineries जो हैं वो यूरो 2 तक नहीं बनाती पेट्रोल. Our refineries are primitive. इंडिया में यूरो 6 मिलता है. And transportation is one of the largest causes of air pollution in Pakistan and Pakistani cities. We're not an industrialized economy, but we're losing between 2 to 8 years of our life expectancy because of air pollution, mostly because of automobiles. and we're focusing on crop burning when that is not the case at all. Crop burning is a minor part of the problem. So all the bhattas, so much effort has gone into the bhattas, into this zigzag technology, which incidentally does not bring emissions within Punjab environment quality standards. We put a lot of policy and a lot of initiatives on a failed initiative when we should have been doing, anyway, let's not get caught up with that. And lastly, we have to hold the international community to account. You know, this argument that we've heard several times that Pakistan is a small greenhouse gas emitter, it's true. But you know, they're lies, they're damned lies, and they're statistics. The point is, again, we're losing 8 years of our life because of bad air pollution in a non-industrial society. We need to be able to say that even though we're not a big greenhouse gas emitter, we're still polluting in our cities, and we need to do something about that. That's the major thing. And आपने बात बिल्कुल ठीक की, it's the big countries, that big economies that have done the pollution historically. Well, we have the UNFCCC Conference of Parties, the COP that meets every year, that makes countries accountable. Last year, Pakistan, through its representation in G77 plus China, brought loss and damage onto the agenda of the Conference of Parties and had it agreed and signed off on. So there's a third form of global funding available to countries that are now on the receiving end of climate change. We can lobby, form together as we did with small island states and vulnerable countries, and lobby the international community to bring improvements and force them to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions. So there is hope.